Hello and welcome to this video on how to use the Ahnapee and Western Railway Valuation Maps Harvard Dataverse. In this video, we start with some brief background information on the Ahnapee and Western Railway and Railroad Valuation Maps. This will be followed by a description of the map materials provided in the Harvard Dataverse, and we'll conclude with an explanation of how you can access these materials. The Ahnapee and Western Railway was a common carrier short line railroad located in northeastern Wisconsin. Running from Casco Junction to Sturgeon Bay, the railroad was incorporated in 1890 and ran in various forms until 1993. You can learn a lot about this railroad in this November 15, 2011 article in the Door County Pulse newspaper. The question addressed here is, where exactly did the Ahnapee and Western tracks run? Under the Valuation Act of 1913, the Interstate Commerce Commission authorized the production of railroad valuation maps, which were used to help evaluate railroad corporate property and set rates for freight transport. These maps have just the kind of information needed to trace exact locations of historic lines like the Ahnapee and Western line. Such maps can reveal interesting details about locations of historic landmarks, such as the Tools and Brandeis grain elevator in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. The National Archives maintains a collection of railroad valuation maps from the period 1915 to 1920. Searching for maps of the Ahnapee and Western line, we see that while the National Archives has 8 maps for this line, the maps are not yet available online. Fortunately, these maps are available to the public at the National Archives facility at College Park, Maryland. Of the 8 maps in the archives, the 4 Ahnapee and Western maps for the towns of Algoma, Sturgeon Bay, and Sawyer across Sturgeon Bay from the town of Sturgeon Bay have been scanned and are being made available through the Harvard Dataverse being described in this video. Moving on to a description of the map materials. The 4 maps scanned at the Library of Congress are stored in the repository as JPEG files of around 15 megabytes each. The 4 georeferenced versions of the Library of Congress maps are stored in the repository as large zipped TIFF files. Let's pause a moment and talk about georeferenced maps. A georeferenced map is a map that has been scaled and rotated to align with the current map of the associated region. Here we see the georeferenced version of the Sawyer Railroad Valuation Map next to a current map of the region. Here is a section of the Sturgeon Bay Part 1 georeferenced map displayed over the current map of Sturgeon Bay, clearly showing the former route of the railroad tracks through this area of the city. The final set of maps in the repository are in KMZ format that can be displayed with applications such as Google Earth, which provides you with a convenient way to lay the georeferenced map over a current map. For example, zooming in on the georeferenced Sturgeon Bay Part 2 map, here is the old Sturgeon Bay train depot. And here it is on a current map of the area with a Google Earth Street View image of the depot. Now let's see how you can access these maps at their Harvard Dataverse. The Harvard Dataverse repository is a free, secure, open source resource that allows researchers to share, publish, and preserve datasets across various disciplines. You can learn more about this resource here, but for the purposes of this video, the main thing to know about the repository is that it is constructed of dataverses and datasets. Datasets hold the actual data that you are storing, and dataverses are like folders in that they contain datasets. Here is the Harvard Dataverse for the Ahnapee and Western Railroad valuation maps that you can access at the link shown here. So how does this Dataverse work? At the top level Dataverse, we see sub-dataverses for the Library of Congress maps, the georeferenced maps, the KMZ maps, and a support Dataverse that we will return to in a bit. Clicking on the Library of Congress Dataverse, we see the 4 Library of Congress map datasets. Clicking on, for example, the Algoma map dataset link, you go to a page where you can download the map. Moving on to the georeferenced maps Dataverse, we see a similar map download page. Following the example of the Algoma map, here is where you can download the Algoma georeferenced map dataset. As you might imagine, the KMZ maps Dataverse follows the same scheme. So, what about the support Dataverse? The support Dataverse contains 3 datasets: a PDF document describing this Dataverse, this video as an MP4 movie, and a visual map index. Here is the visual map index KMZ file opened in Google Earth. You can see 4 rectangles for the 4 areas covered by the maps in this Dataverse. Zooming in and selecting one of the maps identifies the area covered by the map. Zooming in further gives a pretty good idea of the area covered by a particular map. Before concluding this video, note that all of the materials in this Harvard Dataverse are in the public domain and covered by this agreement, making them freely available to the public. And finally, please feel free to contact the creator of this Dataverse with questions and comments. Thanks for watching this video on how to use the Ahnapee and Western Railway Valuation Maps Harvard Dataverse. Hopefully these materials can be of use to you.